Hello everybody and welcome back to another edition of Slam Talk Sports. It is a beautiful Friday morning here in Melbourne, Victoria, Australia, here in Essendon, yes, the home of the Bombers. It's 11 a.m. and it's time to talk about some football. Oh yes, footy is finally back. It's finally properly back in our lives. We had a huge game at the MCG last night. The Blues just snuck past those plucky Tigers. We had opening round last weekend. That was exciting. It was a couple of good games. We saw some of the stars of this competition strut their stuffs. The likes of Nick Dankos, the likes of Nazaya Wanganeen-Miller, and of course, Errol Goulden. We had a big dispute in the media. Oh yes, old media versus new media. Dan Gorringe against the world. It was a busy week in football. But what are we going to talk about here today? We're going to talk about the teams for round one. We're going to talk about any possible bets we can place in round one. We had a good weekend on the punt and opening round. But more importantly, at the end of this podcast, we're going to talk about my SuperCoach team. I know you're waiting. You're waiting like Dylan Moore is waiting to be charged over an incident in Arizona as to what I'm going to say about my SuperCoach team. But the thing is, similar to Dylan Moore, I don't know what's going to happen. I've got moving pieces right now. People are throwing accusations. People are saying, you don't know what you're talking about, Slam. You don't have what it takes to win the 50 grand. We'll find out later in the episode. But before we get stuck into what is a big round one, you know where to find me on socials. It is Slam Talk Sports on X, on TikTok, on Instagram, and of course on YouTube, where you're hopefully watching me right now, or on Spotify, on Apple Podcast as well. So firstly, what do we want to talk about today? Now, it's not Dylan Moore's pressing charges in the USA along with Connor McDonald. It's not the fact we have the Zach Merritt Cup tonight, Hawthorn versus Essendon. I've been waiting 6 months for this game. We've got to talk about last night's football contest. And it was Carlton just getting past Richmond in what was a tight affair. In the first half, the Blues were cruising. They were in Blues cruise control. They were up 27 points at the break, similar to how they're up 25 points last year in this game in round one. But exactly what happened last season. Carlton ran out of petrol tickets at halftime. Richmond came storming out the gates. It was the likes of Sam Lawler. It was their half-back line and Jaden Short and Sam Banks. That was a good response to the Blues' performance in the first half, which was led by Jagger Smith having 16 disposals in the first quarter, looking like prime Nick Dankos, and Sam Walsh helping himself to 30 disposals as well. We all thought, okay, the Blues are a bit too classy at the moment. Their midfield is humming. They'll run away with this game. That absolutely did not occur. No, that is not Carlton. If you've watched Carlton under Michael Voss, they don't win dominantly. They don't run out games. They are a one-half team, then they run out of steam. They run out of gas, and that happened again last night. Richmond could have easily taken this game if not for Tom Lynch kicking 2 goals, 7. What in the Matthew Richardson is that? How did he kick 2 goals, 7? And the second goal he kicked was from just outside the goal square from a free kick with under 3 minutes on the clock. Tommy Lynch lost his damn mind last night. I've never seen a player be so hot and so cold at the same time. I watched the game with my great friend Xander last night, and he's like, I've never seen a player be so demanding of the football, but so unable to actually kick it through the fucking sticks. He couldn't convert. And if he converted, we'll be having a very different conversation here on Friday. But he didn't. And Carlton won the game. A game they had to win against one of their big rivals. And now the pressure's off their necks. The pressure's off the backs of the likes of Sam Walsh and Michael Voss. Because they're 1-1. They lost the game they're probably expected to lose to the Sydney Swans last week. They beat Richmond, a game they had to win. And now they remarkably have 16 days off until their next game. They've got a bye next week. Then they play Melbourne at the MCG Sunday week. So they're able to regroup. They can figure out what went wrong in the early parts of this season. And really, the Blues season starts now in round 3 when they regroup and take on the Demons at the MCG. Richmond, decent start to their year. I don't think we really change our opinions too much on the Tigers. Got to remember, they're missing a lot of top draft picks. We still haven't seen Josh Smiley. We haven't seen Taj Hodden this year. We won't see Sam coming in the early parts of this year, but we saw the maturation. We saw the progression of the likes of a Sammy Lawler. I was impressed by Jonty Fall, Harry Armstrong. They didn't kick a bunch of goals, but it looked like they've developed. It looked like they've put on a bit of size and they can take a nice grab. That's what we want to see out of Richmond in the early parts of this season. Will the young players progress? Will we see more out of them? And in particular with Lawler, 16 touches, 2 goals. The first goal was very dubious, I know, but I saw someone that looked a little bit like Dusty. I don't want to sound crazy, even though I know I am. But number 4, with the Dusty cut, very impressive. I think he's going to have a big year. Supercoach-wise, not so certain, but I do think that Lawler, at pick 1, and young Jagger Smith was pick 3, looks like a really, really strong draft class. Hopefully they can kick on to have both have great seasons. I think that's enough on last night. I mean, it wasn't a great game. Jason Dunstall said it best. If this game kicks off next year, I'm not coming. These sides are not good enough to showcase the game to kick off the AFL year. Now, next year we will have the centenary test at the MCG, so that could complicate whether we open the season at the MCG anyway. We probably will have opening round once again, and the season starts in Sydney or up in Queensland. But yeah, it's a decent game, Richmond versus Carlton. It's usually a close game. It's usually an enthralling game that's exciting. It gets the fans passionate and up and about early in the year before we realise both these teams are actually pretty shit. Let's look forward to Friday night football. Oh, we've been waiting for this one for so long, Bombers fans. We take on those damn dastardly, mischievous Hawks. It's a big one. It's the MCG. Let's look at the teams. Boom, and there we have them. A couple of big names to include for Essendon. Lachlan Blackiston will start in the ruck tonight. Obviously played fullback last year, thrust into that role due to a bunch of injuries at the Bombers. I expect him to have a decent performance against Lloyd Meek and Ned Reeves in what is his real true showcase as a number 1 ruckman for the Bombers, especially with Nick Bryan out for the first 6 weeks. Any other notable ins for Essendon? Archie Perkins. I think it was probably debatable whether he was in Essendon's best 22 right now. He's had a good record against Hawthorn in the past. He's usually a strong starter to the season. I don't know if Archie's in our best team, but I hope he goes well tonight, particularly in a half-forward role. He just needs to engage the likes of Sicily and Battle and Barris if he finds himself match up against them, because obviously they will destroy him in the air, but he's got to find a way to make himself, just make them accountable, to make them think about what he's doing. Otherwise, we're going to see like another 6 to 7 touch game out of Archie, and he'll be out of the team again. He needs to perform tonight. Similar to Hussein Al-Achka, who will be debuting for the Bombers, along with Max Kondogiannis and Dyson Sharp. Al-Achka, I think he's probably just replacing Kako at the moment. I mean, realistically, he's not going to play a bunch of games this year. Isaac Kako was close to playing this round, but instead Al-Achka has been given the position for Friday night only. I don't think he's going to play a prolonged period of games, but if he did, that would be fantastic. Max Kondogiannis, a lot of people have picked him in Supercoach, which I'm like, not so sure about. I know Jordan Ridley is injured at the moment, which is why Kondogiannis is playing. But will he keep that position in the side? Maybe 4 to 5 weeks. He might be a slow burn cash cow. Essendon don't have an early buy, so it's not the worst pick, Kondogiannis. But I think in defence, we've got so many other options like Lockie Jacks, like Selwood, like Lindsley, like Sarong, like Sam Grill. Yes, the grill master himself. I think we don't need Kondogiannis, but not the worst selection. And also, we've got Dyson Sharp debuting, one of Essendon's top picks in last year's draft. Was one of the sliders on draft night. Now, I really am a big fan of Dyson Sharp. I don't know how he's going to go Supercoach-wise, just because we've got Merritt healthy, we've got Caldwell healthy, we've got Parrish, we've got Durham, we've got maybe Fiorini even thrown into the midfield. He's probably like that bench midfielder that comes on, plays 60% game time. Hopefully he can impress in the time he's on the ground, but I don't see him being a massive Supercoach scorer or high possession player early in the season, but maybe as injuries happen, roles evolve, he might be a very handy player for the Bombers, and obviously is ready-made, having played 2 seasons in the Sandful. He is a man-child. Other player I want to mention for the Bombers is Jaden Newen. Now, Jaden Newen broke into the team in the back half of last season, and I was impressed by him. He had a pretty good performance against Tom Papley in Sydney in a rain-affected game at the SCG. Now, Essendon got smashed that day. Brodie Grundy scored 200 Supercoach points, all irrelevant, because Jaden Newen did a pretty good job on Tom Papley, and he did the Tyron Lue step over on him to show him that he's not going to be intimidated by one of the great agitators in the sport. Essendon-wise, no one else I really wanted to mention. That is pretty much the core of their team. Obviously, Zach Merritt is playing for the Bombers tonight, which is a plus. And on the Hawthorn side of things, we will see Cam McKenzie return to the side, who didn't play in opening round due to a concussion. And Ned Reeves has found himself into the Hawthorn side. Now, I think that Ned was going to play a fair few games this year because Lloyd Meek is not a huge jumping ruck, and he looked a little bit slow in the early days of preseason and in opening round against Kieran Briggs. So the dual ruck setup could be a winner for the Hawks, but they are a pretty tall side. Jack Gunston, Marbiol Chol, Mitch Lewis, you throw in two ruckmen. Maybe Essendon can use their speed at some point to kick around these tall forwards and just actually exit the D50 for the first time in their lives without having to bomb it long and turning it over. We will see how it all unfolds tonight. Essendon are 30-point underdogs, if that interests you. I don't think they'll win. I think they could cover that line. From a betting side of things, I don't mind two Bombers players, Jai Caldwell for 20 touches and Archie Roberts for 20 touches. That's going to be about $1.60. That's good for your multis, just because Jai Caldwell had nearly 40 disposals in this game last season. And Archie Roberts is earmarked for a bigger role in 2026. We've seen him as a high-possession halfback flanker, but I think he could be a high-possession midfielder as well if given the opportunity. So, Roberts, Caldwell, chuck him in your multis. And let's look forward to Saturday afternoon footy. We have the Doggies taking on the GWS Giants at Marvel Stadium, 1:15 Saturday here in Melbourne. The Doggies are favourites. I mean, they're pretty clear favourites as well. If you look at the betting, they predict them to win by, I don't know about this, predict them to win by 20 points. Now, we know the Dogs' record at Marvel is tremendous. They often pump sides. We saw late in the year in 2025, they actually dismantled the GWS Giants. Tim English scored 200 SuperCoach points. It was a dead set rout. Richards, Bont, they had their merry way with the Giant men. Will that be the case in round one? I'm not so certain. Now, the Doggies are pretty much full strength. All their stars are in a row. All their ducks are in a line. They are at a full complement. This Avengers midfield that they've been assembling for the last 20 years is going to be out there and roaring against a somewhat depleted GWS Giants side, still missing Tom Green, who they'll miss for the whole season, and missing Sam Taylor, another one of their stars. But we know the thing with the Giants is they love to go on the road. They're one of the gutsiest and grittiest sides I can ever remember. Was it only 2 seasons ago, the first year under Bicep Kingsley, they won about 8 games at different stadiums. They won at GMHBA, they won at Canberra, they won at Western Sydney, they won at the MCG, they won at Marvel, they won at the Adelaide Oval. They win everywhere. But I'm just not certain that they are going to be humming and on all the right cylinders against the Dogs at Marvel, which I'm going to side with the Dogs in this one. I don't know if they'll quite cover the line. In terms of the lineups, in terms of changes, we see Artie Jones leave the Western Bulldogs team after he suffered a concussion at the hands of Harris Andrew last Saturday night. We also see Jordan Croft leave through injury, and replacing him is Riley Sanders, who is a good young half-forward midfielder, was a top 10 draft pick, has been heavily linked to going to the Tasmanian Devils in a couple of years' time, but he can replace what Artie Jones does. Not quite the same player. He's not a small forward, but he's a high half-forward who can get up the ground and have some decent score involvement. And also, Will Lewis will debut for the Western Bulldogs, 196-centimetre key forward. Interested to see how he goes against the Giants and their depleted backline at the moment. And GWS have made no changes at all. None whatsoever after an absolute thumping of the Hawthorn Hawks last Saturday. They were irrepressible. Clayton Oliver looked like 2021 Clayton Oliver. Finn Callahan was flying around like one of Harry's planes. They looked great. I don't think they can sustain it and do it again against the Doggies, who I expect to get off to a 2-0 start. And we'll all say how good a coach Bevo is, and then they'll be 6-6 at some point, and we'll all say how does this guy keep his job? He never comes top 4 and wins finals, and we'll do it over and over and over again until the Doggies make the play-in and potentially do something out of that. They're going to be in that 7-10 bracket because you cannot trust this Bulldogs defense week in, week out consistently. They haven't performed at that level really ever under Luke Beveridge. So until that happens, I won't trust the Dogs to be a premiership threat, but I will trust them to win this game. Betting-wise, not great odds on a lot of players. Oliver to have like 20, 25, about $1.10. For 25 is about $1.60-ish. I think that's not bad against the Dogs to give up a lot of possessions. Libba to have 20 is about $1.18, which isn't the worst. And I didn't hate Joel Frazier to have 15, about $1.17. Put those together for your multis. They seem like relatively safe legs. Let's look forward to the next game on Saturday, which is down at the Cattery. It is Geelong taking on Fremantle. Now, this is a hard game to get a really good read on at the moment, just because of how poor Geelong played in their opening round game against the Gold Coast Suns. They were absolutely put to the sword by Christian Petrarca in that one. This is a bit of a different matchup. You've got another stacked midfield in the Fremantle Football Club, but it is at GMHBA Stadium, a ground they are so dominant on and a one they play so well. The line at the moment is in the Cats' favour. It is the Cats by 14 points. Ins and outs. Now, I don't know if there's any big... there are a couple of big ins and outs. Sorry, I beg your pardon. Jeremy Cameron comes in. Mitch Edwards comes in for his debut. 203-centimetre ruckman. Hopefully will have a little bit of a chance and could potentially be a bench option for our Supercoach sides. And their captain, Patrick Dangerfield, is also ready to go, which adds a lot of dynamism and some good scoring options for the Geelong team. I mean, look at that. Cameron, Dangerfield, Neil. It is a side to be reckoned with, and we can't forget how good they were last year before the grand final. Out goes Ollie Henry. Out goes James Warple. Out goes Mitchell Nevitt. On the Fremantle side of things, well, no real big team changes. Obviously, this is their first game, but the only one I can really notice is Luke Ryan, who has not been picked. Now, Luke Ryan is a dual All-Australian, considered one of the best players at Fremantle. He's either going to be playing waffle or he's just not going to be playing at all in the next week or so, which is a bit of a shock considering how good of a player he is, how good of a Supercoach player he's been as well. He gets a high possession player, intercept marker, but they're going with speed. They're going with youth. It's going to be interesting how that works out at GMHBA on Saturday. I'm tipping the Cats. You have to tip the Cats returning home. They made a mess of Fremantle in this game last year. Obviously, it's not the same. Teams get better. Things change. Freo have been pretty good down in Geelong traditionally. They have a good record down there. But I think Geelong will win this contest, and it will be tight, but I do like them. Now, when it comes to the bets, I think there's some decent odds in this game, actually. You look at Grant Mars, Messi. His 20 disposal line is about $1.70, which is pretty good considering he just had 28 off a hand injury. Pretty good at home as well, Grand Mars. So I think 20 is not a bad line for Grand Mars. Also, for 20, I don't mind Tom Atkins. You look at the midfield mix at the Cats, he's going to get the opportunities. I mean, he was a lot for this number pretty much all of last year. Bailey Smith will play in the middle. You'll also have Max Holmes in there, but it's going to be Atkins. It might be Mullen getting some midfield time, but I think it'll be Atkins up against a Brayshaw or a Sarong going head-to-head with the one that doesn't get tagged. He's going to have plenty of opportunity to win inside ball. And if the Cats win this game, he's going to find his way to 20, I think, quite easily. Those would be the two I'm picking for this game, both at decent odds as well. I want to ask one question. How do we think the ruck setup is going to look like for Fremantle? Because they've named Sean Darcy, as you can see there, as their starting ruck, and Luke Jackson against Tom Atkins starting on ball. It's never been done before. This ruckman as a tall midfielder, it's never successfully been used for 15, 16 weeks, let alone on two players that are probably on $1 million. I'm interested to see how it works. Jackson is a great player. He's not a midfielder, in my opinion. He is a ruckman who's going to become an extra midfielder when the ball hits the deck. And his running power, his goal-scoring ability, and just his natural talent makes him one of the best rucks in the competition. But I don't know what it looks like as a midfielder. We'll see in the coming hours. Let's look forward to the next game on Saturday, and it is at the SCG between Sydney and Brisbane. This is an interesting game, isn't it? I mean, the grand final matchup from 2 years ago. What do we make of Brisbane? I mean, seriously, we think they'd put away a team like the Doggies, but they get run over the top, up nearly 5 goals on their home deck. Seen that before, actually, in opening round from the Brisbane Lions. And now they lose some big names due to suspension. Out goes Darcy Gardner, out goes Harris Andrews, out goes Hugh McCluggage due to a calf injury, out goes Logan Morris due to injury, and out goes Zach Bailey due to suspension. Gardner's a very good player. Harris Andrews is an A-grader. Hugh McCluggage is an A-grader. Logan Morris is knocking on the door to being an A-grader if he has another good year. And Zach Bailey, in my opinion, is an A-grader. In his position, he's an A-grader. One of the best half-forward goal score involvement players you can even think of. I mean, Zach Bailey could have kicked 7 goals in the grand final last year. Could have kicked a bunch of goals on the weekend as well. He's an absolute jet, in my humble opinion. And Sydney make no changes from the team that dismantled Carlton last Thursday night. Probably bang on. Why would you make a change from a team that looks so impressive for the second half of that contest? You've got to be siding with the Swans in this one. They're $1.38. The line is 18.5 points. 18.5 points. It's hard to rule out Brisbane due to the amount of quality that's on that team, but I think they'll probably cover that line, the Swans, just due to those outs, especially the key defensive outs, because you're going to see someone like a Zane Zadostowski or someone like Darcy Wilmot having to play key back against a Sydney Swans team that has all these great forwards. You see Curnow, you see Amadi, you see Logan McDonald, you see Isaac Heaney resting forward. Do Brisbane have the matchups to stop a team like the Sydney Swans on their home deck? That's my big worry. They don't quite have the defensive matchups for Sydney's now stacked forward line. Midfield-wise, McCluggage out doesn't kill you. You've probably got the most midfield depth in the competition with the Ashcroft brothers, with Lockie Neal, with Josh Dunkley, with even Jasper Fletcher if he wants to play there. You've got a lot of options, and the debuting Dan Annable as well. I just reckon that it's going to be tough for Brisbane to overcome the odds in this one. And an 0-2 start isn't a death nail anymore. There's an extra round. You got all these extra buys as well. We know Brisbane had a poor start a couple of seasons ago and still won the premiership, so I'm not going to rule them out at 0-2, but it is far from ideal. Let's look forward to Saturday night football at the MCG, and who'll be there? Yeah, you guessed it. This guy. It is Collingwood taking on the Adelaide Crows. There are no changes from the Collingwood side that just got over the line against St Kilda on Sunday Night Football. The Adelaide Crows, well, there's no changes either because they didn't play last week, but there are a couple of key names that are in the team sheet. The likes of Riley Thilthorpe, who was managing an injury in the preseason. He took off the training vest, the non-contact jersey, said, "Stuff yeah, you trainers. I'm the best key forward in South Australia. Maybe in the competition, I'm going to be playing against this Pies backline," which to the naked eye looks very undermanned. Now, Collingwood, they beat him in the finals last year. An epic qualifying final if you're a Pies fan, where the pressure was simply too much for that young Adelaide Crows team that didn't quite have the finals experience up against the 2023 premiers. But now the Pies are a year older and those Crows are hungry. They're desperate for revenge. Will it be a Melbourne murder on Saturday night? I'm hoping not. I mean, never want to see death, particularly not in the AFL family. I just hope for a good, clean contest. We've got some stars out there. Nick Dacos, Josh Dacos. Definitely not Isaac Rankin. He's not allowed to play. But we do have Riley Thilthorpe. We do have Josh Shelley in a new role. And potentially the All-Australian season of Joshy Worrell. Stars everywhere. Big game. Collingwood home game at the MCG. Who am I tipping? Oh, I'm tipping the Crows. I know it could be embarrassing for me. I know I tipped St Kilda last week, but I think this Crows team is full of quality. Only player they're really missing is Isaac Rankin, who I know is an absolute star, but they've got all their good players out there, and the Pies still don't have Darcy Moore, and they still don't have Jeremy Howe. Now, I know they won last week, but that was against a St Kilda team. That forward line looked closer to East Sunbury. No disrespect, but I played in the East Sunbury forward line. It's not particularly good, okay? You had the likes of Cooper Sharman. You had Nass masquerading as a full forward. You have a half-concussed Rowan Marshall as your centre-half forward. It's not quite the same as Thilthorpe, Walker, Fogarty, and all those buzzing little crows. The crows buzz, all those barking little crows who are ready to feed on the Pies defenders. I'm going the Crows in a very tight one. Supercoach-wise, while we've all got Whisper. We've all got Whisper Nicky Dacos. I think he's a very valid selection. There's a player on the bench, as you can see on YouTube, that I'm not even on the bench. He's on the field. I don't know what to do with this man in Supercoach. He could be a little sneaky little wing half-forward selection. His name is Braden Cook. He's about 23 years old. He's $156,000. I might pick him in my SuperCoach team. I have no idea why. I just kind of feel like it, okay? Crows win in a tight one. Betting-wise, there are some players I don't mind in this game. Now, I didn't mention anything from the Sydney-Brisbane game, just because James Jordan tagged. I think he probably tags Lachie Neale. He might tag Will Ashcroft. Don't want to have to worry about that. Swan side of things, well, you could go after their players. I only really like Callum Mills. The reason why is Brisbane usually restrict the best from having high possession games because they are a high possession team themselves. So at the moment, I'm just going to be sit back and watching the game in Sydney. This game, I like Jordan Ngoe for 15 touches and nothing odds. I like Josh Rochelle for 15 touches and nothing odds, just because it's great multi-fodder. If you want to go with 20 for Ngoe, he hit that line last week with a tab missed by one special. That's not a bad idea either. I mean, it's about $1.80 to hit that 20, which I think is reasonable odds. But if you didn't want to go down the Ngoe path, I still think that Josh Dacos for 25 is decent odds. I like Jack Crisp for 20 as well, considering Collingwood don't quite have the midfield depth at the moment. We could see him exposed to a larger midfield role, but also he's just such a great runner. He gets on the end of a lot of pill, and that's probably it from this game. I'm not too sure with goals this early in the season, and I think the best way to approach your multis is to just load them with disposals, because players in new roles will thrive and they will be force-fed the pill to have them have a good start to the season, to build their confidence and to see whether they can thrive in the new position they've been thrust into. Now, I'm going to leave it there for the preview. I'm going to do a Sunday preview once the teams come out, and I'll drop that on the weekend. How does that sound? I'll drop that on a Saturday morning. We'll have all the Sunday teams. We'll have a bit more intel for the betting round as well. I think that sounds better, doesn't it? Just to keep it a bit shorter, a bit sharper, and if your team's playing on Sunday, well, I'm going to do a 10-minute to 12-minute version of all the Sunday teams, just because usually the games on Sunday are shit. The good games are Thursday night, they're Friday night, and they're Saturday. And the AFL have done that on purpose. You know why? Because they don't give us stuff about the fans. They want everyone to watch it on TV on Thursdays and Fridays. And that's what we will do. We will do that. But I'm going to do a shorter little podcast or YouTube show for Sunday teams every week. That's going to come out probably on a Saturday morning. How does that sound? Well, that's it for the preview for this week. But we all know there's one very important thing left to do. It's to talk about my SuperCoach team. Here it is for 2026. We're officially 8 hours from the second lockout of round one. Yes, this rolling lockout is sending us all mad because we don't know what to do with our teams. We don't know if our structures are correct. Do we have the correct premiums as well? Is everything just done? Have we lost the plot? Do we just delete the side, start again? I don't know what I'm doing. Just relax. Just calm it down. We've done the research. We got up early. We did the homework. This is the team. Starting from the back line, Jack Sinclair. I had Nazai Wanganeen Miller before. Now I'm going with Jackie Sinclair. He's a bit cheaper. He's got a big score on opening round. I know he's going to be a top 6 defender. I'm happy with that selection. I know I've gone against what I thought in the preseason, which was that Nas is the higher upside player. But in reality, it makes sense to pick a player that's a little bit cheaper that has a better opening round score. We knew that opening round was effectively a truncated AFL preseason game when it came to SuperCoach. We knew that going in. So you can't complain now that I've lost my pod. Oh, no, the game's shit. It should count opening round. That might be true, but it is not the terms that were given to us. It's not what was told to us how the game will be played. So for me, getting in Sinclair makes too much sense. Next to him is Connor Rozee, who will have a fantastic year at halfback for the Port Adelaide Football Club. I also have Lachlan Blackiston at D3. Now, people might think that's a little bit crazy, a little bit kooky, a little bit risky. But I think it's the perfect strategy because we think Lachie Blackiston will play for the first 6 weeks as a solo ruckman and he'll average in the mid-80s. So if that's what he's going to do, that's fine at $295,000. That's all he needs to do. And then we flip him. Maybe we turn him into a ruckman. Maybe we turn him into a defender. Maybe he becomes our flex and we figure it out then. His job is to play and to make money. Now, my defensive structures, I think, are bang on. If I want to pat myself on the back right now and say, good job, Slam, because Sam Grill is my D4 and he got 72 points last night at 172,000. You need the Grill master and you need him on field right now. He could have played last season. I mean, we know what Richmond think of him. We think he's one of their long-term solutions at half-back or on a wing, so they're going to play him. And they have other young players injured. You need to expose your top 10 picks to games if they're healthy. He's going to play. He has no early bye. Great pick. Everyone that has Grill on field. And next to him, I've got Jai Sarong and Lockie Jacques. On the bench, I've got Josh Lindsay and Michael Selwood. Looking at that right now, I love my defense. I think it's set up perfectly. I don't love the rest of my team, but I think that is the right way to go with your defensive Supercoach backs. It's a beautiful setup. You've got two premiums. You've got a true mid-pricer you think can make a fair amount of money in the first 6 weeks. Then you've got kids who all look like they've got decent job security, all look like they have the ability to score on teams that aren't that great. Let's look at my midfield. My M1 is Zach Butters. My M2 is Nick Dacos. My M3 is Noah Anderson. My M4 is Sam Walsh. And my M5 is Hayden Young. Butters is in every team. He's going to be one of the best players in Supercoach. He was last season. There's no reason to not pick Zach Butters unless you think he's going to get injured or you know something about him being arrested in Arizona that no one else does, okay? Nick Dacos, he has an early bye. He has the bye next round. But as we saw in opening round, he has the ability to have 40 touches first up against a decent St Kilda side. You've got to pick Nick Dacos. I don't think Adelaide will give him attention. There have been whispers that it might happen, but Peatling last year tried to get into him. We've seen other players at the Crows do a little bit of work on him, but you can't stop Nick. He kicked 1 goal, 2 in the game in Adelaide, had 27 touches. He was pretty good in the qualifying final as well. I'm pretty content starting with Nick Dacos, even though he might lose 70 grand and you might be able to get him cheaper. I think he'll start hot. We're praying for a nice 160 soon, but we haven't really seen that out of the star midfielder, so it'll be interesting to see how the scoring goes this weekend. Also have Noah Anderson. Anderson got 100 and kicked 1 goal, 4 while getting attention against the Cats last Friday night. You look at their opening fixture, you got West Coast, you got Richmond, you got Melbourne. That is why you are picking Gold Coast Suns, not only because they are good players, but because they play a cupcake schedule to start their season. I picked Sam Walsh. I don't know why, because I'm famously anti-Sam Walsh due to his injury history, due to his inability to get a bunch of contested possessions, due to the fact he doesn't hit the scoreboard. So what does he do? What does he actually do for your Supercoach team? Well, he's consistent. His bad is never really that bad. Like, he's not going to score 60. He never really has. But his bad is like 96. It's 92. You can live with it. I don't think there's a lot of upside would be my thing, because he hasn't dropped 160, 140, 120, 150 like ever. So do you want to spend up and get someone that has that ceiling? I'm not sure. I know the draw is pretty favourable in the early days. I mean, Richmond to not capitalise on that matchup is a big shame because everyone else gets to play Richmond now. We'll see Oliver play Richmond in 5 to 6 weeks. He might drop 160. So then you've lost points there again, and you picked a player with a bad buy because he has the buy in the early days. Oliver, I think, has probably a better early buy, but we're going to hold faith with Sam Walsh. He needs to improve. We know he's going to get a lot of possessions on this team. We know he looks absolutely supremely fit. He just needs to kick the ball better. Even though he went at 80%, he needs to kick the ball better somehow and kick goals. I don't understand how Supercoach scoring works at the moment. We saw Sam Banks have 95% disposal efficiency and score 88 with 25 disposals. Explain that to me. Next to Sam Walsh, we have Hayden Young and we have Darcy Parish. True mid-price selections, but I do think they are fallen premiums due to injury last season. Youngie played a handful of games. Parish played 3 games. Otherwise, they would be close to 500k players. So I've got no issue picking them, provided they are both healthy. And Hayden Young, at this point in time, is healthy. And then finally, in the midfield, we have Tanner Bruhn and Jagger Smith. Now, Jagger had an absolutely epic game last night. Was it 16 touches in the first quarter, scored 113 Supercoach points. Lovely. Got to have him on field. I don't know why you wouldn't, considering his upside and at that price. And I have Tanner Bruhn next to him. The reason I have Tanner Bruhn is because he's got a lovely halfback role. He should be getting some kick-ins. His disposal line last week was 20, and that was $1.90. Now it's $1.10 for 20. So everyone clearly knows he's been given the keys to this halfback role. I know we still have Lawson Humphries and the great Tom Stewart down there in Geelong's defence, but Tanner Bruhn gives a different dynamic. He's a bit pacier type, I think, when he gets the ball in his hands. So obviously got a lovely kicking action. He's a former top 15 draft pick. Geelong are still strong on him. Obviously they held him despite all the legal issues he's had over the last 12 months, obviously resolved as well, has been exonerated or absolved of any sort of guilt and when it comes to that matter. But it shows how much Geelong rate his footballing ability, which is why I think he's a good selection in Supercoach, and he has a very nice role to make us some cash in the early days. We go to my midfield bench, Dyson Sharp, who's playing tonight. I think that's a good selection. Tom Lemires, I think, is a good selection, who'll play off half-back, hopefully, for North Melbourne. Now, the final midfield bench spot I'm still pretty undecided on. I've got Milan Murdoch, who just got a spot on the West Coast list 2 weeks ago. He's an inside midfielder. He's 25 years old, so it means he's ready to go. And he's also a 3-time Simpson medalist. He's been tearing it up in the waffle for a number of seasons. Hopefully West Coast just say, here you go, you're our Michael Barlow. Obviously, you're not going to be the best cash cow in history like Michael Barlow, but if you can average 65, just get inside peel tackles, don't get embarrassed every week like West Coast usually do. Not a bad pick at 99k. You need to leave money around those so you can scale up. So let's say Cook pops, or even, heaven forbid, Willem Dersma pops at 100k more. You need to have some money to go get someone else, because if Murdoch is a fouled pick, you're kind of effed, okay? You need to make money somehow from that position. You can't just pick a zero. So you need to have some flexibility to get the guy that potentially will give you the cash generation you require. Let's look to our rucks now. We've got Sherry and we've got English. On the bench, I've got Zane Zakostalski. He's not locked into the team right now, but I do think I'm going to lock away Sherry and English. Now, the prevailing thought this whole preseason is the ruck scores are going to go down. We have to fade the rucks. But I've been waiting and watching to see what the ruck contest numbers have looked like in the preseason and in round one, and it's pretty similar to what it was last year. I don't see a clear change to how the rucks will score. We haven't seen any great ruckman play yet, is the issue. We saw Darcy Cameron get a ton. He's a good ruckman. We haven't seen Max Gawn play. We haven't seen Tristan Sherry play. We saw Brodie Grundy score 112 against Pittenay. And Grundy's a very good ruckman. He was the best ruckman for the last 3 months last season. That's not a monster score, but it's not a score that scares you either. So I just think Tristan Sherry, with the ruck run he has, he plays West Coast, he plays Port Adelaide, he plays some pretty average teams. He plays Essendon and a young Lockie Blackiston. I mean, young because Blackiston's older than Sherry, but young in terms of the career games played. I just reckon Sherry is going to have a very strong start to the year. If he loses money, okay, we cop it. For me, it was him or Bont. I still want to have one of those rolled gold stars. Not have to worry about trading him in later, because if they do start hot, you actually won't be able to get them. They will still be too expensive for you to trade in. I've made the decision it's going to be Sherry because of no early buy and because of the tremendous schedule he has to start the year. And next to him, I will be pairing Timmy English. Now, Tim English, I think, with the ruck rules, will be able to really dominate. Obviously, I've said two different things there, because English should dominate with the ruck rules, but Sherry should stay the same, even though the rules have changed. I know that doesn't quite make absolute sense to you, but I'm just a big fan of Tim English. I think he looked really good in the preseason games. He is a great runner, and we've seen in the past he can score 120. He has the ability to be one of the best Supercoach scorers in the whole competition, let alone in the ruck line. And if that hits, in addition to Tristan Sherry, I'm going to be flying. I will be flying, because people are trying to fade these blokes, and I think they're still going to score relatively well. And if you were to speculate the top 5 rucks, I would still have Sherry, Grundy, Gawn, and English in there. I think you're trying to force someone like a TDK in there. It's not based on anything. It's based on the fact that he's got the number 1 ruck role. But if you look at his history, when he's had it, he's only done it for 5 to 6 weeks and then he's faded out. TDK is a good ruck. He's never proven it for a full season. So I'm just struggling to get into bed with TDK right now. Whereas I know Sherry and English, in their range of outcomes, is not only 110 pluses, which we think is a given, it is the best ruck in the league at some point. And if one of them is the best ruck in the league and I've got them, then I think that's a pretty good starting point for my season. Let's go to our forward line. Harry Sheasel, Christian Petrarca, Sam Flanders, Connor Buderick, Matthias Philippou, and Todd Marshall. I think that's a pretty cookie-cutter forward line. Everyone's got that forward line. Not everyone has Buderick. Now, I'm a late comer to the Buderick party. Obviously, he's a very good player at the Gold Coast Suns. Back pocket, half half forward flanker, played a bit of everywhere there. He's settled into a halfback role. He had a bunch of kick-ins and he had 11 touches in the last quarter against Brisbane in that spirited comeback from the Western Bulldogs last Saturday night. I just think at the price of $245,000, he is a good selection because he will make you money and he should make it quickly. Given that 100 is in his 3-round rolling average, $245 isn't too much to pay. It's probably knocking on a mid-priced territory. It's close to elevated rookie price. I just think at $245, it's not that much in terms of expenditure for a player to lock into your forward line for the first 6 to 8 weeks, and he appears to have a pretty clear role at the Western Bulldogs. We didn't see Bailey Dale take a bunch of kick-ins. We saw Buderick take kick-ins in the second half of that game. We saw Lockie Jacks get a lot of pill off the half-back line. So rather than Bailey Dale being an All-Australian halfback, having 37 touches, 40 touches like he did against Essendon, it could be a collective output from that line, from that halfback line. The Doggies have more players involved, looking to be a bit more flexible, a little bit more dynamic, and a little bit less predictable in the way they exit that ball out of D50, which hopefully is a good thing for Connor Buderick. Philippou and Marshall, as I said, in just about everyone's teams, and Lombard and Devon Robertson on my bench, who are also in everybody's sides. Now, there could be some POD picks in your forward line. You might have a Lockie Doverston or a Malcolm Rosas, both decent selections. I just think Robertson, with midfield time looking likely, and Leo Lombard, with his goal-scoring ability and the fact he plays on a great Gold Coast Suns team, is likely to have a lot of score involvement and contested possessions, make them good picks for your Supercoach bench, or potentially even play over Philippou or Marshall. We'll see how they score this weekend. And finally, in my flex, Lachlan McAndrew. Now, I've been big on McAndrew all year. I've said he must be an R2, going to be one of the great cash cows. I still believe that. I think he's going to be a fantastic cash cow, but there's nothing wrong with rolling 3 ruckmen and a ruck through your flex if you really like the rucks. I really like English this year. I really like Lachlan McAndrew, and I think Sherry at 687 isn't too ridiculously priced when you factor in his early start to the year. You factor in that fixturing, he goes hot first 6 weeks, no one's going to have him, and people won't be able to afford him. Then they're going to be waiting another 6 weeks until they can get him in. And by then, he might have cooled down a little bit. It might not be that white-hot proposition, but you'll have the points in the bank. You'll have his early start. If you're going to pick Tristan Sherry this year, you got to start him. You got to believe in that. You got to believe. You got to think that Shez is the best player or best ruck at least still in Supercoach, as he proved last year. The way North play is a contested game. They're not good enough to open themselves up. Their backline is dog shit. We know that. We know their backline is shithouse. We know that outside Nick Larkey and Paul Curtis, they don't have a lot of natural or known goal kickers. They want to play a contested style. They want Sheasel and LDU and Sherry to share their Supercoach points as they're winning it out the guts, as they're playing a brutal, physical clearance game, which is what put them in good stead in periods of last year. When they had that good run, when they beat Richmond, when they beat Carlton, it was because of the clearance game. It was because Tristan Sherry started to heat up and become one of the best rucks in the league once again. After a somewhat slow first 6 weeks of the season, he became unstoppable in the back half of the year once returning from a 3-game suspension, which is why I still think Tristan Sherry is a good selection for your Supercoach teams. But if you want to go skinny in the rucks, I think that still makes sense as well. What doesn't make sense is McAndrew and Vicentini, Zakakowski, and Mitchell Edwards. I can't see that, because you're going to need to make a lot of money just to get to a point where you can trade in a fallen premium ruckman. You could be forfeiting a lot of points. And the one thing about rucks, you can't tag a ruck. It's the only pure one-on-one contest across the entire field. Midfielders can get tagged. Midfielders can have down days. Ruck's baseline, I still feel, is higher than anyone else's. A good Ruck's baseline. Like Sherry, English, Grundy, Gawn, their bad games are still better than a really bad midfielder's game who's been towed up or tagged, or just didn't have things go their way and the team lost by 60 points. North have lost games year out, year in. They haven't won 5+ games in like 4 or 5 years. And Sherry has been a monster still, without any like scaling points where he's flipped the game in the last quarter. Because North have had honourable losses, but also had a lot of bad losses. My theory would be, if North are better, if they start winning games, sure, he won't be kicking goals, but he'll be leading from the front at clearance, which is why there is still a way for him to average 120 points. But we will find out very soon. That is my Supercoach team for 2026 as it stands right now. I mean, come on, let's get serious. You know me. I'm going to make 100 different changes, but the structures stay the same. The structures are absolutely perfect, in my opinion. But hey, what would I know? I only came 688th last year and won 4 cash leagues. Not bad for a bloke with no clue. That was Slam Talk Sports. Round 1 preview, Part 1, and Supercoach preview V5. We are so back. Footy is back. Supercoach is back. Slam Slips hit a $5 multi on the feed last night. And most importantly, Slam Talk Sports is back in your life. Every single Friday, I'll be putting out a podcast. And you know what? I'll be putting one out on a Saturday morning as well to preview the Sunday teams. You know why? Because I just love you guys that much. And boy, do I love talking about Australian rules football. I'll see you all next week on Slam Talk Sports. You know where to find me on socials. Slam Talk Sports on X. Slam Talk Sports on YouTube. Slam Talk Sports on Instagram and on TikTok. And of course, you can find me on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Enjoy your weekend. I hope your team wins, unless that team is bloody Hawthorn. Have a great one. Talk soon.